Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming on. So, I've got an update for you guys on this pretty big, severe weather event that we've got going on across the Central Plains today. We are really going to be watching this elevated hail threat, tornado threat, and then there is also a damaging wind threat with this. So, you can see we've got a little system spinning around out here across the border of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. This one has been producing severe weather throughout this region up here a little bit farther northeast, and then we've obviously got more storms to come right here in the areas farther north. So we've got two main areas of focus for today. So we've got the two areas circled, but in general, just the entire circled area here is, anybody inside of this region that I circled right here, any of you could experience severe weather today. I think that it's really possible. But the main threat for severe weather is in these two circled areas I have right there. And we're basically just going to be kind of breaking down what these storms are going to be looking like, and basically how strong they're going to be. So we're going to move on to your current temperatures. So let me pull this up. And you can see that this was this morning. This was only 8 a.m. this morning. You already had temperatures ranging from, the lower 50s into dipping down into the upper 40s for many parts of the Northeast. Look at the Northwest. All of a sudden, now you guys are actually pretty cold right now. It dipped into the lower 20s for these mountain regions of Montana, Idaho. Then even the surrounding areas just got very, very cold last night. But you could see that quickly. By 2 p.m. today, it was sizzling out here in the eastern U.S. I'm on Long Island, if you didn't know already, and out here it's been consistently in the 70s. You guys in the southeast, look at Florida, Panhandle, Florida. You're stretching down into central Florida into southern Florida. You guys are getting into the upper 90s for some of you. I mean, it is very hot for most of you guys in the southeast and parts of the southwest. You can see here in Texas, you have consistent temperatures ranging from the lower 70s into the upper 80s, and that pretty much goes. That's the same for Kansas and Oklahoma, except it's a little bit more consistent. And the reason why we have this kind of hole in the middle of the surrounding areas, which are sizzling out here, is because there's so much moisture in the air from this system that it's actually causing the temperatures to drop. So that you can see that we almost do get this little spinning echo we see here with our temperatures. I'm gonna make that a brighter color so you guys can see. But you see how it's kind of round, like this little section here that where the temperatures have dropped. You see it's kind of round. This is actually kind of standing to show that the most moisture is right in these areas where you see lower 70s getting into the maybe even the upper 60s. That's how cool it's going to get. But really, everyone across the eastern West is either in the 70s, 60s, 80s, and then maybe the 90s. But that's pretty much just for Florida. And then you guys in the far, far southwest, you guys have been pretty much the same as like the northeast and the northern U.S. Except in some spots it's a little bit chillier, but otherwise, mainly the country is pretty warm and at average temperatures, except for Florida, where Florida has just been sizzling across today. We get to the evening hours and then eventually the overnight hours, and you can see that it takes a longer period of time for Texas to cool down than Florida, because you can see Florida. You guys are gonna waste no time getting back down into the 80s and then eventually the 70s. You guys in the Northeast will drop back down until 50s. Nothing you haven't seen this week or last week. And then also you can see here this boundary of way a lot cool. This is cooler air. This is actually kind of showing you where this storm is going to be. So you can see that it's pretty much going to be right here along this line, this border of warm air and cold air. And so anywhere where you see one spot is in the 70s, and then the next spot like really close to it is in like the 50s. Like you can see here, look at this massive temperature difference. Look at this, 82 degrees here in northern Kansas. Look at southern Nebraska. You guys are getting into the upper 50s, and there you could just see a huge difference. That's going to show you exactly where that low pressure is going to be located, and that's going to show you where severe storms are most likely. And then we get into the overnight hours of tonight, and you start getting back into the 60s, and then maybe even a little chillier tonight for the Northeast, back into the 40s, but the coast still stays warm. So we're now going to be looking at your alerts, and you can see here that we do have a lot of action here in the plains, but pretty much the coastal regions, all of the coastal regions are quiet. You can see the Northeast, you guys are completely fine. Same thing for you guys for the Southeast coast. Although, like the deep South, you guys along the coastal regions have a flood watch up, and this stretches into parts of southern Arkansas and then parts of Louisiana. Then mainly for we got eastern Texas in this. That's just really just because of the excessive rainfall that's been falling across the last few days, and that's actually continuing into today and tomorrow. So that's just going to raise those flood threats a little bit higher. And then you've got this tornado watch. So we're going to be breaking down that. That's the main part of this video. We're going to be talking about this specifics on these and kind of the qualities of um, these supercell storms that we've got firing across the northern plains. But you can see here that in northeastern Colorado, you have a very large, very large populated area, because this is just east of the Rocky Mountains. So you can see that like basically what's going to happen is you got the Rockies pretty much right here, and that's why you do have a winter weather advisory for this area, because there is actually going to be some pretty heavy snowfall when the storm comes like goes over the Rockies, and then once this gets past the Rockies, it just bumps into this warm air, and then that's just going to cause a very high tornado threat, and that's exactly where that a tornado watch is in place. This stretches into parts of southwestern Nebraska and then parts of northwestern Kansas. So anybody in this tornado watch, that's where the highest tornado threat is going to be for tonight. And then you've got the entire state of New Mexico in a red flag warning. So man, I mean it's crazy. I mean I feel like this has never changed this week, but yes, this is the entire state under a red flag warning. So basically, you could call it a state of emergency for fire weather. So anywhere in the state of New Mexico, you could definitely see some very dangerous and very quick fire spread. Then you've also got a flash flood watch that goes out for. This is only for Montana. A little bit of Wyoming, I think, is in this, but mainly the eastern edge of Montana is where you're gonna have that flash flood watch. That's just because there's been a lot of snow melt in those areas, and then you've also got these scattered flood warnings out there. So we're going to be looking at the southeast, and we're just going to be kind of breaking down what we could see with any severe storms today. As of right now, most of the southeast is quiet except off to the west. So, one thing that we could figure out is are these storms going to weaken because they're going to move in. They're going to move into the southeast and closer to the coast tonight. So that's where we're going to have colder temperatures. So is the storm going to persist and pass the cold temperatures, or is it just going to completely weaken and fall apart? That's what we have to figure out. But let's see. So this is 5 p.m. We're getting into the evening hours of tonight. This is 6 p.m. tonight, and you're starting to see some more thunderstorm action here. Not too much hail showing up here. Hail would be this like pink and purple. There is one supercell that I do think could bring a pretty high damaging wind threat. So anybody in like uh, southwestern Tennessee, you guys could see a pretty pretty large hailstorm tonight, but it's particularly one strong looking supercell is going to move through that area. And really, it looks like the extreme coastal regions, like the Carolina coastline, you guys should be free of the strongest storms. I think that what we're going to be seeing is we're still going to see some scattered severe storms closer to the coast, but the stronger storms are going to be way off to the west. But notice how this actually does fall apart when we get into the overnight hours and we get into the middle of the night. You can see that this storm is, it looks nothing like what it used to look like. You don't even have a low pressure center anymore. But there is going to be one last storm that could bring a lot of hail to the border of Georgia and Miss Alabama. So you see this cell right here. Well, what's causing this to show up here, all these hailstorms, is because you've got warm air that's being pushed off to the east, and you've got this cold air right here, and then you've got moisture that's been it's kind of also contributing to the movement of the system. So because we have moisture pumping into the western U.S. and facing towards the west, that's going to kind of shove the system off to the east. So that's basically how you're going to see the storms go from like Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas all the way into Georgia. But don't worry, that storm cell shouldn't be too strong for that long. So really, it's going to be 12 p.m. into 1 a.m. tonight. That's really when you're going to have the strongest of that storm. Then it's pretty much done. But then you still have some more leftover action here where the old low pressure center was, and you're still going to have some possible hail and some isolated severe thunderstorms across the eastern Texas and Louisiana borderline. So, like Texarkana, you guys will probably see some of those stronger storms once we get into the evening and overnight hours of tonight. But that health threat looks like it's going to continue into the overnight hours because this is where, I'm just going so far out. This is already the late afternoon hours of tomorrow, and you're still seeing a pretty strong hail threat showing up here on the NAM 3KM model, but you're actually going to see some more action farther east. So maybe I was wrong. So I think today what you're going to see a few detached supercells are going to be kind of, minding their own business and kind of just floating out here in the southeast. So don't be surprised if you just run into a dark, scary looking storm on your way home from work or something. I don't know, wherever you are in the southeast. That's all possible today. And maybe you'll have some isolated damaging hail with that. So what do I expect? Well, I don't think that hail's going to be too big. I think up to ping pong ball size hail is reasonable to say. But really, if you would have ping pong balls made of ice falling from the sky, that would definitely be farther west, just because you don't really have that much moisture in this area as of right now. But even central Florida could get on the action with this. You do see a little bit of hail, maybe a little small hailstorm that could last about an hour that could move through the central region of the Panhandle of Florida. But then that's pretty much it. And then it's all up to this one last line of storms that's going to pose a damaging wind threat. But that's going to dump a lot of rain onto Tennessee and then eventually move into the North Carolina and Virginia. But that's just a very wet day today and tomorrow, where you just have pretty much a lot of thunderstorms that are going to be moving through for pretty much everyone. So everyone's going to have a chance to seeing severe weather. I'm not saying that, like, that's a good thing. That's obviously a bad thing, but I really think that if I had to if I had to put my money on one region to see the severe weather today, it would obviously be this region right here. And then for severe weather tomorrow, it's definitely going to be this region on the right. so farther to farther to the coastline, um, closer to the coastline, I should say. But we're going to move on to, I believe this is the central U.S. And we're going to be looking at what these storms are going to be looking like for you guys. And you can see that this was 9 a.m. this morning. You had extremely intense thunderstorms raging across southern and southeastern Texas. But I mean, look at this. This is a dump of rainwater, just falling, at very high rates. But you can see here that there is just a ton of rainfall with this system. It is incredible how much moisture, because like I was showing you guys, all day today and all day yesterday, there was just a bunch of moisture right here in the coast, in the Gulf, and it has been pumping into, like, shooting into the southern plains and farther west. So that's just going to continue helping this system grow until it finally runs into that cold and dry air in the southeast, and that's what's going to slow it down. But you could see here, this was 2 p.m. today, so like a few hours ago. You could see that these storms have definitely decreased in size. They've weakened a little bit, but they are going to continue farther to the north, and they're going to kind of meet up with this secondary line of storms. You can see here that this actually may pose a very, very high damaging wind threat. You can see you've got a frontal line here. What's weird is you actually kind of see one main area here, one main cell right in the middle, that is showing up on this NAM model as a doozy. This is going to bring a lot of hail and then a flash flood threat. But all these little individual storms lined up, like these supercells lined up here on the edge of this, these are the cells that could definitely produce a tornado. Especially, I think that the ones, probably up here, even though this is actually not part of this system, I think these could produce a few tornadoes. But it's really mainly just the ones that I've circled. Like, I'll circle three for each side, so three for farther north and then three for farther south. But you can see that the most intimidating ones are definitely looking like they're going to be farther south. So maybe that's going to tell us that there will be a higher tornado threat farther south. But personally, I'm just going to agree with the SPC, because they are saying that there is actually going to be a pretty high tornado threat, considering this region hasn't been seeing this region has almost seen no severe weather today. Or sorry, not today, this year. So I think Reed Timmer did actually say that this would be the highest tornado threat for Colorado in 3 years. So I mean, this is pretty incredible right here. But we're getting to the overnight hours and the very, very early morning hours of tomorrow. And then that's when you're going to start seeing some snow showing up here in the Rockies, and then that's where you're going to start kind of getting a sense of when the timing is for the severe storms tomorrow across Colorado. So maybe what we'll see is we'll actually see a higher tornado threat tomorrow in Colorado than what we'll see today. But some more very, very intense thunderstorms can move across the eastern Texas once we get into the afternoon hours of tomorrow. That's going to be the same thing for Louisiana and Arkansas. But also notice that all these storms are now spinning in the same direction. So even though you have three kind of bunches of storms, you got the main one up here farther north. You've got one kind of spinning around in Missouri, and then you've got the one farther south. All of these are going to be connected by this low pressure center, which is actually going to be dropping into the 990s in terms of millibars. But this is definitely going to be a very strong and dangerous event. But I'm just hoping that this will actually decrease in size and in strength due to this colder air coming in from the west. But I don't know. Definitely doesn't mean you should take this. You should underestimate this storm. But I do expect some severe weather in most of these areas. Then looks like this is going to be Friday. Once you get into Friday, you don't really have much left. Maybe some scattered showers and storms around this entire region. But then across central Texas, you do suddenly and abruptly you do have some more storms flying across central Texas. But we're not going to get into that because we don't have any model run time left. Um, so we're going to be looking at, I believe this is the north central. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at what the storms are going to be looking at like for you guys. And you can see that, it's mainly for Nebraska. Because you saw with the southeast and the south central, you had storms firing up, in the first few hours of the model run. Now this one takes a few hours to get warmed up, and then you start seeing the storms fire across the north central. But you can see here in southern Minnesota, you're just gonna get hammered tonight with some strong, very strong storms. This is actually going to be mainly like the very early morning hours of tomorrow. So the highest hail threat for this area here, I think the highest hail threat will probably be around 5. Anywhere from 3 to maybe like 5:30 in the morning, tomorrow morning. But then that will slowly diminish. But once that diminishes, you're probably just gonna have a damaging wind threat left over with that. But otherwise, it shouldn't be too bad until really like the evening hours and the overnight hours of tomorrow is when we start seeing those more consistent severe storms continue slamming into this region. As you do see this low pressure creeping up into it's like almost sneaking up on Minnesota, and then it's going to eventually just slam this entire region with a bunch of thunderstorms that could potentially be severe. That's also going to bring a very high damaging wind threat. So for the last part of the update, we're going to be looking at the SPC, the latest SPC for severe weather. And you can see that there is a huge region with thunder that's in this very light green. This entire region is expected to have some kind of thunderstorm or precipitation that's relative to thunderstorms today. But really, what you're focusing on is this enhanced risk you've got here for parts of northeastern Colorado, and then parts of northwestern Kansas. That's where that severe weather and those severe storms is going to be kind of pinpointed. Excuse me. But those very populated areas here in this enhanced risk, including Denver, Colorado, Aurora, Colorado, Lakewood, Colorado, Thornton, Colorado, and West Westminster or Westminster, Colorado. I do not know if I'm saying that right. So if any of you live in Colorado, please correct me in the comments. Um, but then you do have a slight risk as well. This is actually going to include almost 4 million people, including Colorado Springs, Lubbock, Texas, Amarillo, Texas, Fort Collins, Colorado, and Pueblo, Colorado. I don't think I'm saying that right either. And then this also, I don't know if I said it, but this also does include Casper, Wyoming. So this is a pretty big area too. So anybody in this enhanced risk or slight risk, I think that's where you're gonna see that highest tornado threat. But this stretches all the way into northern Texas, and then all the way into maybe quite possibly it could get extended into parts of southern Montana. But I mean, this is a pretty impressive area in considering that we don't really have a very high severe weather season until June and July for this area. And then you do have two areas of marginal risk. This one for the surrounding areas of uh, the slight risk and the enhanced risk, and then you do have another one here in southern southeastern Texas and parts of western Louisiana. And we got the tornado threat. You can see here all the way up to a 10% risk for Sterling, Colorado, and Fort Morgan, Colorado. But you can see here it's very, very precise. But there's a tiny area here of northwestern Kansas, and then just east of the Rockies, and then a little bit farther south than McCook, Nebraska, and that area in general. But a very small area. You can see here it's not even half a thousand people. It's only, or sorry, not even half a million people. This is only 175,000 people. So not a huge population, thank goodness. But that wind threat, you do have an enhanced risk for, or not enhanced risk, the hatch risk for a little bit of this 15% risk area here. Um, and that's just showing you that in the hatched area, that's a 10% or greater probability of wind gusts 65 knots or greater within 25 miles of a point. So that 65 knots, if you kind of compare that to what it would be if you convert it into miles per hour, that'd be that'd be anywhere from like 70 to 75 miles an hour. But that's pretty serious wind gusts. Now the hail, you do have a 30% risk. That's a pretty high risk. You don't usually see that with too many severe weather events in this region. But gorilla hail is definitely possible with this. This is going to be a very large, you know, kind of hail event. Kind of, that's pretty much what I've been saying throughout this update. That I expect all factors of severe weather is possible throughout today and tomorrow, but I really think the main threat is going to be that tornado threat. I think that really, Colorado is going to get hammered tonight by some pretty strong storms. But we're up to a 30% risk for hail, including Denver, Colorado, Aurora, Colorado, Lakewood, Colorado, Thornton, and Westminster, Colorado. So a pretty large area, considering that we usually with these storms farther to the west, they're a little bit smaller. But this is stretching. This is almost a from north to south kind of storm here, stretching all the way into parts of southern Canada and then almost reaching the Gulf Coast. And then we go to the day two risk. And you can see that there is actually another enhanced risk for the same area, but it's bigger. So we have another pretty serious severe weather event that we have to talk about for tomorrow. That enhanced risk, including major cities like Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Wichita, Kansas, Norman, Oklahoma, Edmond, Oklahoma, and Midwest City, Oklahoma. Tornado threat, you've got a hatch risk. I mean, this is going to be something tomorrow. We're really going to have to look at this. I don't know if I can squeeze in an update tomorrow. I have a pretty big day tomorrow. Um, but there is definitely going to be a lot of action tomorrow with this same system. Wind, a little bit lower tomorrow, so only up to a 15% risk for that same area as what we're seeing today. Then hail, you've got another 30% risk with a hatched area. So that's gonna wrap the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, like, share, comment, and subscribe. If not subscribed to the channel, we'll see you guys in the next update. But be careful out there. There will be a lot of severe thunderstorms out here, maybe even a tornado or two for Colorado. But regardless, just stay safe no matter what happens, and God bless. We'll see you guys.